I would go with this straight.
Just this?
It's too...
This?
No.
This?
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess you could go with that.
Hey guys, it's the Everyday Aficionados with our first movie review. Tonight we have Alien. Alien is about this crew of people who are on a mining vessel. They come across this crashed alien ship which has a batch of eggs that's sort of hidden in
this fog.
If you haven't seen it, you obviously aren't familiar with it, but it's pretty iconic. Guy gets a face hugger, which is one of the alien creatures, attached to his face. They bring him back on the ship.
It has laid some sort of like eggs, I guess you would say, inside of him, and the iconic scene, the chest burst scene that everyone knows, and the creature goes off and scampers off from the ship, and then the rest of the movie is really about trying to find this creature, and then later on, get away from it.
So even though the plot really isn't anything to write home about, in my opinion, the writing is very well done. And you can really see this with the characters and the way the characters are established through these little moments. The breakfast scene at the beginning. Also the way the characters are so incredibly grounded. Two of the characters who stick out to us the most, we call them the worker characters.
Those two characters stood out to me the most because they had this little neat comedic dynamic going between the two of them.
All the other characters also are memorable in their own little ways. You know, Ripley is incredibly headstrong and very logical. And Ash, who, you know, ends up being a robot, he seems like he could go off the edge at any moment, even early on when you don't really have any idea about it.
And he does go off the edge when he has that brawl with Ripley, and he's choking her, shoving the magazine in her mouth.
The movie is very much concerned with themes of, like, sexual invasion. You can see that with the face hugger, and also with the design of the alien. Its head is very phallic. You know, these designs created by H.R. Geiger. He's an artist, and a lot of his work has to do with that kind of imagery.
After Ash attacks Ripley, one of the worker characters knocks the head off of Ash, and that's when you do find out that he's a robot. But he starts gushing this, like, milky stuff, and it's really an awesome special effect. And it's really gross, too, at the same time.
Yeah, it carries through with this imagery in the movie, the technology in the movie, being really gross and unsanitary.
Like dirty. Even the ship itself looks kind of like unclean and like it's been being used for mining.
And that helps sell this movie as like a believable location. It doesn't feel like overly sanitized and totally functional. Things malfunction all the time. Things break.
They treat the ship itself as a character in this film, really. They introduce you to the ship before they even introduce you to the characters.
Yeah, and just the design of the ship is totally industrial, unwelcoming, confusing. It looks like you would just get lost in there and then trip and fall on something and get tetanus. It's really gross.
But that just factors into the amazing special effects in this film. I mean, even the alien planet, to me, stood out the most special effects-wise because it was just a beautiful shot with, like, the haze and the fog.
Yeah, and even the alien ship itself. I mean, there's a really cool way of thinking about it when you look at the way the alien ship is framed and the shots from the inside. It looks very similar to the mining vessel in how confusing and dirty and kind of gross it looks. It's more organic, but it still carries through those same ideas of being unapproachable, alien. You know, even the human ship feels alien.
And then it comes to, like, the alien itself, special effects-wise. The alien looks impressive. Even from the beginning, when it's an egg, and you look inside the egg, and it looks like this muscly fiber stuff. And then when it's the face hugger, and it's got, like, the bulging veins sort of on it, when it's stuck to the guy's face, it's just gross. And then when it bursts out of the chest, that looks amazing when it bursts out of its chest. The mature alien looks gorgeous, too. It's got, like, that rubber latex skin look to it. To me, one of the biggest images that stands out the most is at the end when you finally get to see him, like, when he's hibernating inside that
little cubby
compartment of the ship.
Oh, definitely. I can see it in my head right now, and I think it's because they never show you a full shot of the thing until that last section.
And that just factors into the suspense and the atmosphere that they really do create with this film. Even though it's a very good film, there's still some flaws. To me, the biggest flaw has to be this weird thing going on with the cat.
Yeah, there's this weird relationship between Ripley, the main character, and this cat, Jonesy, who lives on board the ship with the crew. In the first parts of the movie, you see Jonesy around sometimes, the other crew members pet her, but it just never seems like a big deal, it just seems like a pet. But then later on in the movie, when Ripley has to, get the escape pod ready to leave, she actually, leaves her job of trying to get the pod ready to go save the cat.
There's an alien on the ship
That
trying
literally
to kill her.
And it's literally killed almost everyone except her and 2 other people.
And she's worried about the cat.
I mean, it could make sense if they establish why this cat is so important to her, why she would risk her life to save it, but it doesn't. I mean, first of all, she's established as a very logical person, and not very emotional either. So why does she suddenly have an emotional attachment to this?
Yeah, she didn't want to let the guy into the ship, but now she will go to great lengths to save this cat. She'll sacrifice herself. The funny part is that, yeah, she's trying to save this cat and risk her own life, but at the same time, she's running around with it in this crate, and she's shaking it around. At one point, she, tosses it down to the ground.
She, throws it down on the ground and lets it topple over. It's probably the least successful part of the movie, and, it sounds like we're nitpicking, but it does kind of take you out of the...
It takes a good chunk of the end of the film. This is the climax. You're supposed to be, the peak of the storyline. Everything's coming together, and she's supposed to be running from this monster, or this alien, and you're so frustrated because she's busy worrying about the cat. They kind of use it as a cheap way to build suspense.
It does feel cheap, and it does kind of fall flat. It isn't well established in terms of the character, so I think it's kind of weak writing. That's probably the biggest flaw, which says a lot about the quality of the movie. But then again, I feel like the movie does drag on in the second half. I think the first half of the movie is flawless, pretty much. The way the characters are established, the way you slowly come to understand what this creature is, and you start to get to see the life cycle of the alien. But in the second half, it's just we're just chasing it down.
The best thing about this film, to me, is that life cycle of the alien. That's really what it's all about. This alien is a life form. And, yeah, it's got the slasher cliches, but to me, it takes it to a whole nother level, because it's not just this mindless killer that's just killing for no reason. It's not indestructible just because it's ghostly or because that's convenient for the storyline to make it even scarier. It's indestructible because it's this super creature that has these built-in defense mechanisms like the acid blood or that double mouth. And it is a living, breathing creature that is just surviving and killing to survive and not for the sake of killing.
It feels like this character doesn't exist for the sake of a film. It exists because it's an actual life form. Everything about it makes total sense within this movie's universe. And that aspect of the perfect organism, the perfect hunter, is really scary and really successful. They pulled off very well. I gotta say that the greatest strength of the movie is in the execution of these really important details. The characters, the settings, and the creature. The big 3 things you gotta have in a great sci-fi flick and in a great creature feature. They nailed all 3 of them down.
Overall, it's a very good science fiction flick. It's a very good alien flick. It's a good film. We're going to give this one 4 out of 5 jostle cats.
Overall, an incredibly strong movie, and it deserves its status as a classic, not only of the sci-fi genre, but of the horror genre, of the creature features. It's a great movie.
It's a great film, and it's one of those ones that you can watch over and over.
Check it out sometime, and come back again in a few weeks for our next review. See you next time. Here, Jonesy,